know how it seemed like you were, I don't know, 10 years old, and it took so long to get to 20? And then you were so happy when you hit 20, you're like, oh, or 21, I'm a grown up now, you know what I mean? And then, it seemed like it took just a little bit of time for those of us who, then we hit 30. And then once we hit 30, it just seemed like time just kind of started rolling fast all of a sudden. You notice that little kids were no longer little kids, they're now graduating and that kind of stuff, So it's always interesting to me how that happens. So I said that to say that I want us to really take advantage of the time and really think about where we are. Not what is our plan for tomorrow necessarily. What is our plan for 5 years? What is our plan for 10 years? Where you want to be in 10 years? Where you want to be in 20 years? If you don't take the time to think about that now and just let day by day by day go by, you might find yourself in a position and in a place that you don't want to be 10, 20 years from now. So I want to talk to you about your future. What dreams, what visions, what goals, and what achievements do you have besides making money? Because sometimes we do things with money or for money that we hate. We put up with people that we don't like for money. We do jobs and different things for money that we'd rather not do. But what is it that you love to do? See, because there's a uniqueness about you, and the uniqueness that's about you, you try to shelter it in or hold it in rather than letting it out because we're taught to conform. But you are a bright light and you are unique light. And when that unique light that's in you begins to shine, that you can really be who you're supposed to be. Former Indiana Pacer David Harrison, all right, he pulled down, I think, $44 million over 4 seasons. He got a job at McDonald's in 2013 after being unable to pay his son's Happy Meal. 12-year NBA veteran, I'm just sticking in the NBA, Eric Williams, $40 million over his career, broke and homeless. Dennis Rodman, remember him? $27 million over his playing career, he's broke. He owes just less than $1 million in child support. Sean Kemp, that used to be my man. Not only did Sean Kemp make $90 million during a decorated 14-year career, but he was a recipient of a lucrative endorsement deal, including $11.2 million in Reebok shoe deal. Broke. Bunch of kids, bunch of addictions, bunch of other bad spending. Money may not just be the answer. We got to have the correct infrastructure in place, because infrastructure is basically support. So when this building was a precept, and then someone sat down and they drew it out and made it a concept, and they said, okay, this building's got to hold this amount of weight. So we need to have beams that are going to come through this building that are going to be able to hold this type of weight. So that's what infrastructure really is. So for us, those guys that I read you about the NBA, they had no infrastructure. They were making money, and they didn't have any way of creating another flow of money coming to them. They just had a flow of money going from them. And the second the money stopped coming in, because you can't play basketball your entire life, they were just like regular folks, broke. So money doesn't always fix the problem if up here is not fixed. Here's the difference between the CEO and the guy who works in the mailroom. What is the difference between the janitor and the guy that owns the company? His salary, vision, the way they think. Exactly. What separates the guy in the CEO and the mail guy is simply what he thinks. Nothing, that's the main thing. There's a couple other things, but But that's the main thing, what he thinks. I remember I was driving over the Point of Rocks Bridge up there, and you go, I forget where it is. Was that Poolsville? Wherever that is. White's Ferry, up in that area. And I was going across to Virginia, and you end up in Leesburg. And so you drive up through that road, and you come out at Route 7. But before you get to Route 7, there's some houses. So there were like these $1 million homes on the left-hand side. And then there was this one shack that was on somebody's property. And I'm not kidding you, it was probably from here to about here, and maybe about this far back, and it was somebody's house. What separated that man's mindset and vision for a home was something that size, whereas the guy across the street's mindset and vision for a house was this big monstrosity. The only thing that separated them was what they think. What said that makes a difference is in the two people is their money, and also this key, time. We forget about that. You spend money, you spend time. What the CEO is doing with his money and with his time is totally different, I guarantee you, than what the guy in the mailroom is doing with his money and his time. High place thinking. If you look at it as an operating system, now you know you got Windows 10, you have Windows 7, I don't think most people don't use Vista or anything. If you have an Apple and you're using an iOS system, it's an operating system that works in the background. What it does is when you open your app or you open up your program, it makes it operate and function properly. So if you look at it like that, he's got a high place thinking running in the background of his mind, so it's automatically gravitating him toward doing something that he's not supposed to do. In a way, it would be called self-sabotage. So a lot of times when we try to do something and we try to step out to do something differently, what happens is our memory from the past, the things that happened to us, step in, and then they cause us to self-sabotage. So automatically, if you think about your money, you think about what did I learn from my parents. Well, you know, one of the things my dad told me was, oh, you don't ever invest in stocks because they jumping off of buildings. That was him. He was born during the Depression. So during the Depression time, when they lost their money, they were jumping off of buildings. So to him, you invest in stocks, you're going to jump off a building. And he told me that over and over and over again. Who has told you stuff? What have you believed? Our relationship with money. What is it that how do you feel about money? Because how you feel about it, or how you react to it, or how you act to it determines how it comes to you or how it's repelled from you. Either you attract it or you detract it. Money to it. What is it that you have, the gift that you have in you that's going to attract it to you? So when you think Tiger Woods, you think, well, back then you used to think golf. You think basketball, you think LeBron James. You know, so automatically when people think of you, what do they think about? And until they think about something, when they think of you, it's going to be hard for you to attract money to you. Certain people, Kim Kardashian, when you think of her, you think of what? Socialite. Socialite? Exactly. That's why she's got cash. I mean, you think of some other stuff. I see y'all laughing back there. But at the same time, other people think of certain things, and it creates cash for them. Till your name is associated with something specific that's tied to your purpose, it's going to be hard to attract that cash to you. So sometimes this is what we don't want to look internally and dig for the purpose. We look on the surface and go, we can't find it. And then after a while, we want someone to discover it for us, and they can't. No one can discover your purpose except you. So it takes digging to get down inside to really see what's in there, to know what your destiny and what your purpose is. Because if you don't live out your purpose and your destiny, I guarantee you, you are going to be a frustrated individual. It's going to show up in other areas. Anger, you know, a lot of men are angry. You wonder how come you could just say one little thing to them and it sends them way off the deep edge for this very same reason. They haven't discovered who they are. I want you to dig. I want you to dig deep. I want you to dig till you find it. I don't want you to dig and go, okay, it didn't come up. I want you to keep digging and digging and digging and digging, because this is what's going to ultimately make you fulfilled. The graveyard is full of people who died unfulfilled, who didn't want to dig. And then what we end up doing is digging and bury them. And when you find that thing that makes you tick and that makes you grow and makes you know who you are, that's what I want for you more than anything. Amen. And I feel like I've done my job.